Good Tuesday morning. So on Monday, the San Antonio Spurs played their first preseason game against the Oklahoma City Thunder. The Spurs did lose this game 112-107 by 5 points. But a lot of players for both teams were out. We're not going to look too much at the score. It is a preseason game. Basically, doesn't mean anything for the standings overall. So before I begin into this observations of some of the players that participated in this game, I kind of want to go through some of the players who were out and then talk about Pop's 10-man rotation. So the key Spurs players who were out for this game were Victor Wembanyama due to rest. Chris Paul also probably due to rest. Devin Vassell, who is probably not going to be back or at least be reevaluated until November 1st. And then Zach Collins, who might get into a preseason game pretty soon, but he was also out for this game as well. And then for the Thunder, two of their key rotation players who were out were Shai Gilgeous-Alexander and Lou Dort. And then Chet Holmgren did play in the game, but I believe he only played in one quarter, the first quarter. And then Jalen Williams also started and played in this game, but he actually didn't return after halftime because, again, it's just a preseason game, so a lot of these teams aren't putting forth some of their best players into these games. But with the players that were available, Coach Pop did stick with a 10-man rotation for 3 quarters straight. And then from the fourth quarter, he kind of went to the end of the bench player. So I just want to go through some of the lineups that Pop had out there. For the starting unit, it was Trey Jones at the 1, Julian Champagnie at the 2, Keldon Johnson at the 3, Harrison Barnes at the 4, and Jeremy Sochan at the 5. And then for the second unit off the bench, it was Blake Wesley at the 1, Stephon Castle at the 2, Malaki Branham at the 3, Sidi Sissoko at the 4, and then Sandro Mamu there at the 5. So before I talk about these individual players, I do want to make 2 notes here. Just kind of my thoughts regarding preseason games. I don't put too much stock into the overall like scores or even some of the just offensive and defensive numbers, just because, like I said, a lot of times rotation players are out. Just talking about the Spurs on offense, right? So a lot more players got shot attempts, or maybe some more, they got to handle the ball a little bit more and initiate sets. And that's not usually going to happen when Chris Paul's there, when Wemby's there, when the full team is available. So again, that's something to note. And then also shooting percentages. Again, it's just a 1-game sample size. You don't want to put too much stock into a shooting percentage. What you want to focus on a little bit more is were they good shots? Was the team generating good shots for that player, or was that player taking good shots? So again, that's kind of when I watch preseason games, I don't put too much stock into the numbers, just because of, I still use them as a guide, but again, I don't harp on them as much until the actual regular season gets here, when we can start collecting some real data regarding the players and things like that. So here's a few starters I want to talk about. First, Julian Champagnie. Okay, so he was the team's leading scorer with 22 points. He made 6 threes for San Antonio. He collected 7 rebounds, and he played 21 minutes in this game. So one key thing I noted here about Champagnie is that right now, a lot of the players in the wing position, such as Champagnie, such as Malaki Branham, Stephon Castle, these players, they're trying to earn that starting spot that's going to be vacated for the first 5 games of the season while Devin Vassell is out. So again, Champagnie, who was a starter last season, he kind of showed, put his name forth there in that first game by going off from 3, making a bunch of threes here, being very confident in his 3-point shooting ability in this first game. And so he ends up being the leading scorer for San Antonio. Just some notes I noted about him was that he was, if you just watched him, he was always roaming around trying to find those open spots, trying to make himself a target. And just multiple possession after possession, someone would get in the teeth of the defense and kick out to the corner or the wing, and there was Champagnie ready to shoot, and he took advantage of those opportunities by making those 6 3-pointers in the game. We do want to note that it was a preseason game, and Champagnie acknowledged this after the game, that because it's a preseason game and several players were out, he did have more opportunity here than maybe a usual regular season game. So he did take a team high 16 shots. 13 of those shot attempts were from 3. And so again, in a regular season game, Wemby's going to get a lot more shots, or maybe Paul's going to be setting up other players for shots. And when Devin Vassell's healthy, he'll be getting shots. So again, Champagnie can't get used to having 16 shots a night. That probably won't happen. But he was ready to shoot. And then even on some of his shots, they did look a little forced at times, but even on those shots, Coach Pop was at least happy that he was, at least putting up those shots, because he never actually pulled him from the game. Here's what Coach Pop said about Julian. He said, "He played a solid all-around game, I thought. He missed about 3 in a row there, but he kept shooting. I thought he didn't hesitate. He played good D. He hit the board a little bit. So I thought he was one of the guys who played it well all the way around." And so again, this is, Champagnie's game kind of reminds me of the early few years of Danny Green, when the Spurs, if he was going to be out on the floor, he needed to shoot if he's open. If you're open, you take the shot. You got to have your confidence level high. You can't, get shy about that. And so that's kind of what it reminds me of, what Coach Pop saying those kind of things about the fact that he didn't hesitate. And this goes back to something Champagnie said after the game as well, about how he's trying to work on keeping his confidence very high, and not getting frustrated if he does miss a few shots early on. He said this, he said, "Just go in there and shoot. That's my job. If they go in, they go in. That's the goal. Confidence-wise, I'm confident. I have to be confident if I'm going to be one of the team shooters. You've got to shoot through makes, misses, anything. But confidence-wise, just going through the game and going in with the mindset of getting shots and getting the threes that you can get up. So again, that was Champagnie saying that like last year, if he missed a few shots, it might have impacted him mentally about, taking the next one that's available. Whereas here, he's coming into this training camp, this preseason, ready to shoot if that shot's there. And again, if he wants to earn that starting spot while Vassell is out, that's kind of what he needs to do, is just, not be so shy about taking threes, especially if they're wide open. And like I mentioned, he understands that he's not going to get 13 shots every night from 3-point range, on a typical night. It's just tonight, that was one of those, or I'm recording this on Monday night after the game. So on Monday night, it was, those shots were available for him. So he had a good game here with 22 points. The next player I want to talk about was just one of the new Spurs additions, and that's Harrison Barnes. He ends up with 6 points, 5 rebounds, 3 assists in 20 minutes. He didn't have his best shooting game, early on, just 2 of 8 from the floor. But one thing he did showcase was his quick fire 3-point ability, where, he just catches very quickly and hoists his 3-point shot up. He showed a little bit of being able to put the ball on the floor, whether that was like jabbing and driving by his defender, or running a pick and roll with like Jeremy Sochan, setting a possession for him. And then he just shows that veteran leadership out there by getting off the ball quickly. He makes his decisions very quickly. He doesn't hold on to the ball too long. And so that's something that's going to work in the Spurs' offense, having Harrison Barnes there. Regarding Jeremy Sochan, he was there starting. He had to play the starting 5, basically, because the Spurs were missing all 3 of their centers in Wemby, Zach Collins, and Charles Bassey. So he basically started at the 5. He had to guard Chet Holmgren in the first quarter, and then, vice versa, Chet guarded him. He ends up with 9 points, 6 rebounds, 4 assists, 2 turnovers, 1 block in 21 minutes. Does Sochan. Just some things I noted was that, he's able, now that he's the power forward, for today he was a starting center, but because he got to be more so in that front court position, he got to, roam off the ball. If he did want to drive, he got to put the ball on the floor and drive by. And you saw that, he made 6 of his 9 points from the paint area. And then regarding his new jump shot form, it did look a little bit different. I noticed that on the gather, like the rise up of that shot, it was a little bit of a hitch at first, but then, the follow through looked good. And he made his first shot, nothing but net on a wide open 3. The second one he did miss, but it was also one where I didn't see the shot from him last year, where he kind of like pump faked, he sidestepped, and then he took the 3, even though it didn't go in. So again, Sochan just looked a little bit more confident. Again, just 2 attempts, but at least he did put up his new 3-point shot there. And again, we'll get to see more tape of that shot once these preseason games continue to go along, and we'll see what his confidence level is with that shot as the season begins in a few weeks here. One player I want to talk about off the bench was Stephon Castle, the rookie. So he ends up with 5 points, 3 assists, 2 rebounds, 6 turnovers in 19 minutes. So just something I mentioned was that, well, first of all, position wise. So even though, yes, he, on paper, he says he's played the starting shooting guard spot. I mean, not the starting, the backup shooting guard spot. He was out on the floor a lot with Blake Wesley and then also Malaki Branham. And a lot of times in the half court, especially, Stephon was a player who was bringing up the ball, kind of getting the Spurs into their sets. But then there was also some times where he and Trey Jones shared the floor together. And there, Jones ran more of the point and Stephon was a little bit more off the ball, running more so like that shooting guard kind of role. Obviously, you see the 6 turnovers, those obviously don't look good in his first game. But one thing I did note is just that it almost seemed like he was trying to adjust to the speed of the game, like just normal passes that he's ready to make. Those got picked off quickly by the Thunder defenders. Some of the dribbles or drives that he made, the defenders were always there near him. So I think for him, he's going to go back, he's going to watch the tape, and he's going to see that these are probably all correctable mistakes that he needs to just work on and just get that experience of adapting to the NBA game. And that kind of goes back to something that Coach Pop talked about after the game, where he was actually pleased with Stephon on his defense, but then also offensively, he kind of, in a way, Pop was like kind of glad that Steph had a little bit of trouble there, because it kind of showed him he's going to be able to learn from this experience. So let me go through 2 of Pop's quotes. First, on Steph's defense, he said this about Stephon Castle and Blake Wesley. He said, "I really enjoy Blake and Steph playing D out there, getting after people. They have a great mentality that way. Hopefully that'll infuse with some other players." Now, regarding Steph adapting to the NBA, playing against NBA players, he said this on offense. "Yeah, it was great. He figured out tonight those are NBA guys out on the other side. So sometimes those shots at the rim were probably going down for him at UConn. Here, there's somebody there that's just as strong as him, and it's great for him to see that. But he doesn't shy away. He sticks with his nose in all the time." So again, that was Pop on Castle. Some things that Castle did show us some positives is that on some of his drives, especially out of the pick and roll, he showed his ability to draw in 2 defenders and find different shooters. There was a possession where he runs a pick and pop with Mamu, and he kind of just hits Mamu with an open pass to make a 3-pointer. There was another possession where he kind of draws in the defense. 2 defenders come at him, and he kind of does one of those where he jumps in the air and he throws the pass. One of those 2-handed jump passes to a corner shooter. The shooter did miss the shot, but again, just the fact that he's seeing that as a rookie is a really good for his playmaking ability. And then of course, if you watch the game, you saw that social media lit up on one of the plays where he finds himself open on the weak side. And then he basically starts driving in to the basket, and one of the Thunder's rookies players who's on a training camp contract, that player, he tried to block Steph, and nope, Steph threw it down on him with one hand. The Frostbank Center went crazy on that play, and then also he showed a layup where he kind of used like a left hand hesitation dribble when he finished with contact, even though the refs didn't call the one for him, but he finished with contact on a layup. So again, it was just his first game, Steph Castle. Again, it'll be good for him to get that experience of learning how to adapt to the NBA game going forward. The next player is Malaki Branham. He ends up with 12 points on 18 minutes. So Branham, he just showed here. I feel like he wasn't holding the ball as often. He wasn't really thinking too much. He wasn't overthinking. He either shot it, he either drove in, or obviously he moved off the ball. And so that's kind of what I saw from him. I know he put up a lot more shot attempts to get his 12 points, but still, I feel like that's kind of one thing that you saw some growth from him, is just he wasn't overthinking. He was just kind of just reacting instead in this game. And so, like I mentioned before, for Branham and Blake Wesley, this is a big October for them, a very crucial preseason, because they're trying to get the team to pick up their team options for next season. And so again, based on the roster, what it looks like right now, I feel like it's just one sample, it's just one game, but Branham did play well enough where I think that right now it's leaning toward he should probably get his option picked up again, just based off one game. Regarding Blake Wesley, he ends up with 3 points, 4 rebounds, 7 assists, 2 steals in 18 minutes. Blake as well is in that same position as Branham, where he's trying to get the team to pick up his team option for next year. Just one thing that I noted was that on one of his 3-point tries in the corner, he shot it very quickly, very fluidly, and that's good to see, because he said he did work on his shot, his 3-point shot. He only took 2 attempts though on the night. His defense was aggressive as usual. He did a really good job of crashing the defensive glass, getting boards, and then just taking off down court, and trying to find his teammates. So really, again, getting the Spurs in that full tempo offense before the defense could get set in the half court. And even Pop kind of mentioned how he had a good night. Obviously, he talked about his defense, but also he said this. He said, "It's one game, but he's had a great summer." Said Pop of Wesley. He played well tonight. So again, that's just a quick few words on Blake Wesley. Again, the fact that even though I know the Spurs' point guard position will be stacked with Chris Paul, with Trey Jones, and also Steph Castle running some point, it's not a bad idea to have Blake Wesley there as like the third point guard on the roster for added depth when the team is fully healthy. So again, he didn't hurt his case for getting the team to pick up his team option with his performance tonight here. He and Branham both. And then finally, another player I want to talk about off the bench here was Sandro Mamu. He ends up with 14 points, 3 rebounds in 18 minutes. Mamu mentioned how he worked on his catch and shoot three, because he knows that when he's out on the floor with Wemby this season, that teams are going to double team Wemby. So he needs to be ready to shoot catch and shoot threes, whether wide open or contested. And he showed just that right away. He was setting some pick and pop screens, and then right away he'd flank out. CD Sissoko found him for a nice bounce pass, and then Steph Castle found him for a pass as well. So Mamu made multiple 3-point attempts in this game. His shot looks really solid and fluid from 3-point range. And then he's also a player who just constantly moves around on offense. If he's not on the ball, he's or like involved in a screen action, he's actually like cutting at different times to try to see if he can get any kind of layup attempts. And Coach Pop noted that he had a good game. He said this. He said, Sandro was the same way. I thought he had a good game, said Pop after the game. And then Mamu kind of just talked about how the game has really slowed down for him. He basically said that he basically took it upon himself to really ease down his role and really just get to the basics of it. And here's what he said. He said, "I think my role is very simple. Crash the board every time and shoot when open," said Mamu after the game. "Play the right way and play defense. I feel like I try to simplify my role." Mamu also talked about one of Pop's, teaching principles, which is to get off the ball quickly. He said this. He said, "I'm understanding what Pop means by 0.5. You catch it, you shoot it, or you give it away, get off the ball." So I feel like it's sinking in. It's all sinking in. So again, that was Mamu saying that, he basically, like he's getting more comfortable out there. He did play the backup 5. Got more minutes than he's probably going to get when the season actually starts and the team's fully healthy. But again, he took advantage of that time and tried his best there. He did mention personally that he wants to do better on the boards, that he felt like 4 rebounds isn't enough for him, or 3 rebounds, whatever it was. So he definitely wants to improve that number. And then finally, like I mentioned, Pop stuck with a 10-man rotation for the first 3 quarters. Then in the fourth quarter, he kind of put some of the players at the end of the bench, players like Riley Minix, Malachi Flynn, Brandon Boston Jr., Nathan Mensah. These are all players who are going to be on training camp contracts, and they're trying to either earn a roster spot by getting the team to either waive a player on a standard contract, or for 3 players, Minix, Boston Jr., and Mensah, they still have enough eligibility to get a 2-way contract with the Spurs, because that's an open spot as well. And so Minix, at least offensively, made the most of his minutes here. where when he got in early, he was in a possession where he caught the ball, near the elbow in the mid range. He kind of took a jab step and then made a fading away mid ranger. There was another possession where he was open in the corner. He quickly shot that 3-pointer with good solid form, and he made it. And then on another possession in the fourth, he was kind of roaming around. And as one of his teammates kind of drew in some defenders, he kind of made himself an open target there at the center of the arc. The teammate kicked it out to him, and he made a 3-point shot. When Pop was asked about, Minix's game, he didn't go too much in depth. He said this. He said he made his shots. Pop didn't want to harp too much on it because Minix did just play in the fourth quarter. All those guys played. Pop also said how like Malaki Flynn played pretty well in the fourth quarter, but again, it wasn't the entire game. Those guys weren't in the entire 10-man rotation. But again, I think it's notable whoever sticks out here between Minix, Mensah, and Brandon Boston Jr., because like I said, there is an open two-way spot, and one of those players, maybe the Spurs will look at them for signing that two-way spot. So that kind of wraps up this episode. Again, just a quick short one post game. Again, make sure you check out the spotofshot.com, and that's where I write up the recap, and then of course I record the episodes afterward. Yeah, and then the Spurs' next preseason game is coming up on Wednesday.